What's happening in Athens right now has a lot of lawmakers here in our state and across the country talking about immigration.
Atlanta News First Rick Fulbaum is here in studio. Rick, even the Speaker of the House is weighing in on this.
That's right. This is national news, of course, and since Friday, we've seen statements from lawmakers from all over the country, a lot of them calling out the ongoing problems at the southern border. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson taking to social media Sunday saying that what happened to Laken Riley was, quote, a direct result of the open border policy choices of Biden and Mayorkas. That's the words of the speaker. Even here in Georgia, immigration has been a key issue for Governor Kemp's administration. Earlier this month, the governor visited the border in Texas and pledged to support the state's effort to control illegal crossings there. Following the murder of Laken Riley on the campus of UGA, Governor Kemp sent a letter to the president saying, in part, while the dangers of this crisis have been theoretical, this week our state witnessed a devastating tragedy. He also demanded public answers to, quote, ensure state and local officials have the information needed to keep communities safe. The governor went on Fox News to voice concerns over how things are being handled at the border. President Biden posted on social media Sunday as well. He says, quote, over time, our laws and resources have not kept up with our immigration system. It's broken, and our politics has failed to fix it. To my Republican friends on the Hill, the president said, doing nothing is not an option. Compromise is part of the process, and it's worth mentioning that it was Republicans who blocked a bipartisan border deal that was agreed to by Republicans and Democrats earlier this month.